6 west, causing a 25-minute delay. In 400 feet.
Are you guys ready? Oh, no, you're fine. I was waiting on the directions to stop, but I don't know. Anyways, welcome everyone to the October 10th, 2024 BAR small meeting. My name is Lindsay Van Slambrook. I'll be your chairwoman tonight. Fellow board members present with me this evening, we have two new board members, which are Daryl Cobb and Becky Finno. Also, Bill Turner, returning board member. City staff present this evening are Frankie Pinto, BARS Administrator, and Travis Scally, Senior Preservation Planner. The order of tonight's meeting will be as follows. We'll start with an introduction of each project given by city staff for the benefit of the board and the public. This will be followed by the applicant's presentation. The applicant will have 10 minutes to please approach the podium to give their presentation, and anyone speaking on behalf of a project, so this would be owners, designers, consultants, developers, should speak during the applicant's presentation versus during public comment. By ordinance, the board can ask questions of the applicant at any time. By custom, we do so on the heels of the applicant's presentation. This will be followed by public comment. Any written public comment that was timely submitted has been provided to the board for review in advance of the meeting. If you are speaking as a member of the public, I'll recognize you. Please approach the podium and state your name first and last for the record. And if you live nearby, please state your address as well so we can make a note of that. Public comment will be followed by city staff comments and recommendations. And once we've heard from the public and city staff, the applicant will have a 5-minute period of time to clarify or respond to anything raised in the public comment or in the city staff comments and recommendations. Once we've heard from the applicant, public comment and the applicant's presentation will be closed and we'll move into board discussion and a vote. Results will be posted online on the city's website. The following items have been withdrawn or deferred this evening. Agenda item B1, 31 East Battery. If there are students present, welcome. Once you've stayed for your allotted period of time, please approach Travis at his special desk over here, and you can sign any paperwork that you need. Please understand that the purview of this board is architecture only. So anything related to livability, zoning, stormwater is not within the purview of this board and should not be voiced here either during the applicant's presentation or during public comment. All right, we'll move to agenda item A1, review of the minutes from the September 24th, 2024 meeting. I make a motion for approval, incorporating the comments I circulated to the board this afternoon. Do I have a second?
Second.
Bill? I'll put the motion to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, motion passes. Agenda item B1, 31 East Battery Street has been deferred. We are on agenda item B2, 258 Cumming Street. Frankie, if you'll give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
Yes, ma'am. 258 Cumming Street is in Cannon-Borough, Elliott Borough, Council District 4. It is not surveyed circa 1890 in the Old City District. They are requesting conceptual approval for a 2-story addition at rear of existing house. This is the property's location on Cumming Street. Existing site photos. Some context of Cumming Street. Fire insurance maps showing the history of the property. And I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Good afternoon. I'm Alan Kinter. I'm here on behalf of the owner, Sam Gonzalez, and this is the second conceptual review. The first one was sticking out to the side a 1.5 feet, and it's a little bit too tall. So we have diminished the width and the height, and put a little bit more differentiation into the addition's connection to the existing, and differentiated a little bit as far as the roof form, height, and muntins. So we're now about 8 inches below the existing ridge, but matching the roof slope and have a indented hyphen-like connection to the existing, which then gives way to a slightly kind of bump it back out on both sides to for the rest of the addition side walls. And then we put basically turned the roof running gable to the sides, basically with the same roof slope dormers as it continues on back. I took all the adjustments that we had to the existing house away, except for the addition of a window on the north side elevation, which is matching existing and needed for egress in that rear bedroom. So other than that, everything on the existing house is the same. Took away the, kind of the additional trim, the pediment that we were considering on the front and whatnot. The existing house is a bit of a mixed bag with respect to the window casing, and it's a little bit hard to tell whether the sides match the front, because the renovations, repairs, student housing for a while over time have kind of disguised a lot of the detail. So I was thinking probably best to err on the side of matching the front. There's enough room below in between the frieze. We don't have like a standard matching head height in the existing house. The floors are undulating to a certain extent. The head heights are up and down 8 to 10 inches as well. But for the front, it's relatively the same. The other, on the last page, on page 10, you kind of see that the house is set back quite a bit from the street. And so do a little axon. Unfortunately, the color wouldn't come through the PDF, but so on page 11, you can see the side of the.
Mr. Kinder, you didn't give us a page 11. The last page you sent us was the photos.
Could you show us what you're
Oh, sure.
looking at?
Yeah, this is the picture. It let me grab that side plan.
You don't wanna. Over here.
It was on its own because I couldn't get the file size to reduce enough to combine it with 1 through 10. So it and the last page said here.
Hey, can you go to the first slide, page 1?
Here's this one. As close as you can get to that corner, which basically makes kind of a view angle of maximum view angle there. So you can kind of catch that corner where it comes back up from the addition. And then on this side, when you're as close to that house as possible, there's a little bit more of an angle, but it's set back 4 feet. So
For the benefit of the public, we're looking at this. He's showing us view angles from the public right of way down both sides of the house. So you could follow along on the site plan.
so this side is almost, that north side is almost invisible. But over here you can catch basically that side of the facade. So I was basically taking the corners down in order, instead of running the fascia the whole way down that side, partially to make some room inside the second floor, which is pushed up into the, not really an attic space, but, and then that gable, which matches the front, is still lower because it's a dormer, but it's a couple feet down from the ridge, which is 8 inches down from the existing ridge. So if you all are okay with the home and whatnot, I'd like to move that ridge, the new ridge, up to the height of the old one to make. I mean, right now it's code compliant with respect to minimum ceiling heights in that second floor. It's just a little bit tight up there. I don't think matching the ridge height would be a problem because you can't see it from anywhere. It would just alleviate, you know, some of the, what did Julie say? Height challenge. The fact that this existing, so we could actually, you know, we could keep the corners down, but then that would be a change in roof pitch. So it would be 7.6 instead of 7 feet. If we were to take that ridge up to match the existing, the height of the existing ridge.
Do my fellow board members have any questions for the applicant?
What is your difference between the ridge of the main house and the ridge of the addition currently?
Right now, we're 8 inches lower.
Okay,
And then the side, those like broad 4 and 12 gables that stick out to the side are another 18 inches lower.
Any other questions?
And I'm sorry, the rear roof eaves are even with the main house eve, right?
No, they're lower. Well, it's not, there's an eave, there's a horizontal eave on the indented balcony type portion of the house, and then there's a corner spring point that is the same at the corners, but since there's no flat eave soffit on the addition back here, that's the thing that matches, is basically the roof of the hyphen is lower, and then it goes back up to match the spring height of the, but it's just at the corners. I mean, it kind of shows up most on the roof plan, which is
4.
4.
Okay, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kinter.
Thanks.
Do we have anyone speaking from the public?
And Esther, Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has reviewed the improved design alterations, and we appreciate that the applicant reached out to us. The applicant has responded to the board's comments, and we recommend approval of the submitted design. Thank you.
Anyone else speaking? Okay, Frankie, if you give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, staff just had 2 observations for the board. One, that the previous staff and board conditions have been addressed, and as requested by the board, applicant has met with staff to further develop the design. So staff recommendation is a conceptual approval with a final review by staff of permit drawings.
Thank you, Frankie. Mr. Kinter, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment or the city staff comments? You don't have to, that was pretty positive, but you have the opportunity. Thank you. All right, public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
First of all, thank you for the changes that you made in working with the board. It's huge changes, and I think the project is going in a much better direction than it was. And also, I think you mentioned last time that you were thinking about parking in the front yard. Thank you very much for not doing that. And putting your parking to the side. Regarding the site, I just have one small comment, and that is providing a sidewalk access to the right of way. And currently it's only being provided over to the drive, which it's a much more urban approach to run it out to the street as well. Regarding the addition, the way you have it now, it's easily discernible from the historic building mass. I like that you disengage the roof form. The hyphen works well to separate the two, and varying the light cuts for the windows from the original building, I think has helped a lot. So overall, I think everything's very positive.
I just have a couple of comments that maybe the siding on the hyphen could not match the existing, maybe be something that's a little bit distinguished. And then you mentioned that it's a little bit difficult to kind of set a head height, you know, as best you can get a window size and head height for those first floor windows. I think that would help just for the simplicity, the continuity. I feel like that window on that's the south side, that second floor window, it's a bit out of scale to me. You know, I know the ceiling height is high. I don't know if it'd be worth looking at a window of a similar size with a transom or something that's a little bit more proportional in keeping with the house itself.
Oh.
Page 6, that second floor window, just because of the visibility of that elevation. I'm assuming the rear is not visible, right?
And I have nothing to add. Sounds like we might have some consensus.
I have no comments. The massing's much better.
Yeah,
So
that's nicer.
This is, yeah, very much appreciate the improvements since the last.
How does
design.
everyone feel about possibly raising the ridge height
That he
on
mentioned.
the rear,
on the rear
how much?
to match the ridge height of the,
Oh, 8 inches?
yeah, so it's negligible.
I wouldn't bother me any.
I don't have a problem with that
I
either.
think this house is a little disadvantaged anyway.
I was looking at the cross sections
Yeah,
that are, it's very low.
Yeah. it is.
So I wouldn't have a problem. I like that the you know, that spring point is
Mhm.
down with the existing, but I wouldn't have a problem with the ridge. I wouldn't actually even have a problem if the dormer came off the ridge.
Mhm.
You guys, if that just came up and came off of that.
Yeah, but no.
And that is a board comment, and then they can work with city staff. Do you want to make a motion?
Sure. Make a motion. I will make a motion for conceptual approval with final review by staff. With taking into account board discussion. Do you want me to list any of those in particular?
I don't think we need to, other than, did you want to add a board, basically a board note that,
About the ridge height?
Yeah.
Yes. And
that
approval to raise the ridge height of the addition to match that of the historic buildings.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with final review by staff, with board discussion and really, I don't know if this is a condition or a board note, that the applicant be allowed to raise the ridge height of the addition to match the historic building mass. Do I have a second to Bill's motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'll put the motion to a vote. Daryl,
Yes, approved.
Bill,
Yay in favor?
Becky,
Yay, baby.
chair vote to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 3, 605 Rutledge Avenue, Frankie. You'll give
Mr.
us,
Kinter? Mr. Kinter? Staff can review that do the final review within the permit, so you won't have to come back to staff or the board.
Okay, thanks a
So
lot.
you know.
okay, agenda item 3, 605 Rutledge Avenue, Frankie, if you give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
605 Rutledge is in Hampton Park Terrace, which is Council District 6. It is a Category 4 circa 1925 in the Historic Corridor District. They are requesting a conceptual approval of a rear addition. This is the property's location at Rutledge and Congress. Some existing site photos. Context of Rutledge. And Sanborn maps showing the history of the structure. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
Bart Ferguson, the architect of the project. Ben D'Alessandro and one of his children are here this evening to join us. We're wanting to add approximately 120 square feet to the footprint of the property at the rear. At the first floor level, it would be a covered porch, mudroom, and utility room. And then the second floor of the addition would be a new bedroom. We're also wanting to remove the second floor screen porch. It's in disrepair, seen on page 004. The property also has the Philip Simmons iron gates and fence, which we will do any repairs that are necessary. Detail 4 shows that we're going to remove the existing awnings and repair the railings. Detail 5, we're wanting to remove the tile and rebuild the front steps. Detail 6 shows that the mortar and brickwork is in disrepair, so we're wanting to repair all of that. Same with detail 7, we're going to patch all the holes from imitation shutters that have been put on the house, and also repair all the existing original windows. So, and then the rest of the project will be interior work. We're going to rearrange some of the rooms and add a couple of bathrooms. So, you know, the elevations show the existing and proposed. Not much is changed on each one. We are going to change the material in the gable ends back to what it would have been originally. We're also going to add more venting at the crawl space, and we'll match the existing vents. Also going to move the existing HVAC is in the front side yard. You can see on the sheet 002 site plan. Right now it's at the bottom left-hand corner of the house. I have the note HVAC units moved to roof, so we're going to move to the roof of the new addition, the rear. Does anybody have any questions?
I just had one clarification, Frankie, we're only reviewing the addition, right? All the repairs, that's all staff level.
Yeah, the repairs are. So I somewhat noted this in staff comments, but not entirely. So in the historic corridor district for this is, we actually don't have jurisdiction over things like repairs, minor alterations to a building. What we have jurisdiction of, where it's residential, less than 8 units. Right, 8 isn't it? We have purview over demolition and new. So what we're looking at is anything being removed for the rear porch and the new addition that's being added.
And then what about the vents at the foundation? Is that,
Alteration.
It's a minor alteration,
That's-
so
I mean,
it's
not
really
the-
not under purview.
okay, got it.
Oh.
So we're only looking at the addition for purposes of our purview
Okay.
now, okay.
Okay, so not the windows on the north sides that are being.
Right, so
Right,
what
that are being
they're
cut.
doing is considered a repair since they're matching it to something that we would consider comparable.
Okay.
So in that respect, we consider it kind of like the demo purview.
Okay.
It's not being demolished. It's a repair, so it could just be signed off on in a permit.
It's always confusing in that area.
I know, I tried to go into it a little bit of staff comments. I don't think I added enough for the repair information, so I'm sorry.
I'm not clear on the rear part. It looks like that's being demolished.
Right. So
Oh, so north of line, we only have purview over demolition. However, there are 2 corridors in that district that we also have purview over. What goes in its place, like we have south of line. So here, this is in the what's the
Historic
historic corridor district on Rutledge. So they're only demoing here. We have purview over the existing back structure, and then because they're in this corridor district, we have purview over the new rear addition that's going on. So I was clarifying with Frankie that all the repairs, that's all, we don't need to even consider that because they're allowed to do that by right.
They're really
So
confused.
nothing is historic on that little back part.
What is the age of the existing addition?
Right, so when I look on the Sanborn's map we have on page 003. I have a Sanborn map of 1915 that shows the porch, the back. Of course, I don't know if that's 1 or 2 stories, what they're showing on the Sanborn map,
Mhm.
I don't know.
So we have to think through whether, I guess first we would approve we'll talk through this, but approve the demo of that addition. And then if we would, then, then we can talk about the new addition.
Right.
Okay, did that answer all of your questions?
Just one material, I mean, one clarification, the windows in the addition, are they to be wood or clad or,
I think it'd be best to match what we have,
okay,
match the existing.
Okay.
So, just.
Okay.
Look at that,
and siding would also be wood as well?
yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, did y'all have any questions? And as board members, we can ask questions of the applicant at any time, so if something comes up even during board discussion. Okay, thank you, Mr. Ferguson.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, do we have anyone speaking from the public?
Anna Catherine Alexander with the Preservation Society of Charleston. We appreciate the applicant reaching out to us on this project, and we're excited to see this rehabilitation in the works. Regarding the approach to the proposed addition, it appears the existing rear porch is part of the original form of the house. And that's based on the footprint shown on the earliest Sanborn maps and consistency of materials and details across the building. To keep the original form of the building intact, we asked the applicant to explore options for a rear addition that works around the existing 2-story porch. We would also encourage allowing the original 2nd-story porch to remain open as part of this project, given that the 1st floor has already been enclosed. Thank you.
Amanda Nestor, Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has reviewed the conceptual design of the proposed rear addition. We appreciate the repair work to be completed, but believe the addition is too aggressive in scale for the existing footprint. We suggest maintaining the original roof form and working within the existing footprint of the structure to maintain historic material and character. Thank you.
Is there anyone else speaking from the public? All right, Frank, you have to give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
Okay, staff had some observations and a condition. One, due to the structure's location on the corner of Rutledge and Congress, the addition will be highly visible. In the historic corridor district, BAR has purview over new construction and the removal of historic materials and character defining features of structures over 50 years of age. And then we had, while staff typically prefer a roof of a new addition to tuck under the eave of the historic structure, the existing porch roof does not. And additionally, the proposed parapet is lower than the overall height of the existing porch. Staff condition for approval, staff recommend aligning the first floor doors and windows with the windows on the second floor. And staff recommendation is a conceptual approval with staff conditions and a final review by staff of permit documents. And as additional information for the board, we were reviewing it as though the original porch was only a single story. We weren't able to find documentation that it was a two-story originally. So if the preservation groups have found something that the material is original, that was not part of our consideration when we wrote comments.
Mr. Ferguson, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment or the city staff comments?
Yes, I'd just be curious to know how that, it was found out that it originally was two-story, not one-story on the addition. When I initially came down several weeks ago and reviewed this with, your architect, Lawrence Courtney, he felt very good about it. And at the time, his only comment was he thought we needed to lower that parapet wall a little bit, a bit higher to help conceal the HVAC equipment. So we both agreed if I brought it down, it still would not be visible from the street. And I do agree with I need to line up the door and window on the first floor. I'm showing the windows on the second floor. It would be hard for us to accomplish what we're wanting to by staying within the existing footprint of the first and second floor, without doing the addition. We're just trying to accommodate the family, that a growing family, 4 children. We're trying to get it to work. They've been there a number of years and they like the house. And Ben is also a businessman here in Charleston.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful home. I walk past it almost every day. All right, thank you. Okay, public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote. I think my first issue is really the age of that structure, whether it was 2 stories when it was built.
I suspect it was originally 2 stories just because of the form. It ties pretty seamlessly into the existing roof form of the house, and sandboard maps, sometimes it's been in my experience, sometimes they will know whether it's 1 story or 2 stories, sometimes they won't. So, but there's no way of, I can't say 100% sure, but I suspect it was part of the original form of the house. That being said, generally the board likes to see original roof forms preserved and worked with. And I've kind of struggled with this one. Do you try to work with the original roof form and maybe bring an addition to the side of that form that was previously the porch? Maybe it's a flat addition like what he's proposing now, but you still work with that porch roof form. Or do you just wipe the slate clean and come up with a design much like what is here now? That's a cleaner design. So I struggle on that a little bit myself there. The couple of things about I just have a couple of comments on what's going on. The window trim on the windows for the addition, it seems to be underscaled. It reads more like a brick mold or something. So I would suggest that be beefed up some. And the windows are close enough together that they could probably be molded with trim in between them and get rid of those little tiny bits of siding in between the windows. And I do agree with staff that it would be nicer if the windows on the second floor and door and window on the first floor did align. But I guess I'm interested to hear what everybody else has got to say about the roof form. Which direction should we go?
I had a question was it the Preservation Society? And you said something about massing?
No, our assumption is that this was the original roof form, given the footprint shows up on the earliest sandboards and it does not specify whether it was 1 story or 2 stories, but at least that footprint was there. And then just consistency in the treatment of the roof form and the details and materials, it appears as though it has always been there, and it appears it's an original feature.
I have one statement if I could.
Does anybody have, what is your statement? I'll ask you a question.
It seems like, when I look at all the Sanborn maps, whenever they show a porch, they have dashed lines around it, the front and the rear. Not just on this property, but on other properties. So to me, that would indicate it's a single story porch with the dashed lines. That's just my comment.
Thank you.
Let me ask one question. Did you find any indication on the interior of the second floor that it may have had like something that appeared to be an exterior door that may have led to an upstairs porch? Or
And now where are you asking, on the first floor? Or
on the
second
second
floor,
floor?
inside that, what's porch now?
Yeah, did you see I don't know if you've done any exploratory work like opening walls or anything?
No, I have not done that. But okay, right now that porch, it's in such disrepair. We have the doors closed off so nobody can go out there because it's in such disrepair.
I guess my question is, does that door that you say is blocked off, does it at all appear that it may have originally been an exterior door?
I haven't seen it from the outside,
Okay,
so I can't say for sure,
okay,
but I can find out.
okay.
So the biggest advantage to the parapet is to put the air conditioner on top and get it off the
Right.
ground. Is that the?
Right, I thought everybody would like that, getting it out of the yard. It's in the front yard.
So the Sanborn maps, we're not sure whether it was 1 story or 2. We're assuming it was 2. Is that right?
I assume it was 1.
I'm sorry, we're assuming it was 1.
He
Yeah.
also assumed it was 1.
Yeah.
I think it's, we have really the roof form that makes it seem like it's 2, but
Yeah, same.
Are we supposed to go see it before demo?
yeah, I was wondering if this is a candidate for a deferral and we can have a site visit.
I personally would like to see if we could establish whether or not that was part of the original reform or if it was an add-on.
The stairs, the metal stairs were taken down a year ago. That they were still there, but it was such bad repair, dangerously, that they were taken down. There were metal stairs that came out from that door that you can see on sheet 004, detail 3. See the door? Because the middle stairs came out and straight down.
Oh,
I can't imagine that was original.
yeah.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion for deferral until such time staff can visit the site. And until such time, more information could be provided on the roof form of the porch,
The historic.
historic form.
So is that another $500 again?
No,
If I can close the porch in, if I don't demolish it?
That's still be in our purview in this particular.
that's not
area,
demolished
porch
yet.
enclosure. Yeah. I'll let you work with staff on that one at maybe staff level. Well, hold on. We've got a motion on the floor for deferral of the application for staff to perform a site visit and for the applicant to provide information on the historic roof form. Do I have a second to Bill's motion?
Second.
Okay. Put the motion to a vote. Daryl,
Yes.
Bill,
yeah, in favor.
Becky?
Yes.
Chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously. So no, it's a deferral until it might, I think even the next meeting. It could appear if staff is able to perform a site visit and if we can get additional information just on the history of that, some more concrete information. And then as far as an enclosure,
Enclosure would be an alteration, so it wouldn't fall under purview.
So do we need to meet you on site when?
Travis and I'll do a site visit.
Just on your own? Do we?
Yeah, we'll just go by and do a site visit so that we can get out there as quickly as possible and not hold you up.
Will you need to be in, to go upstairs and get inside or
Yeah,
just all?
we'll just do exterior.
Right. Will you let the homeowner know that you'll be fine?
Yes, sir. We weren't gonna enter the property, but yes, sir, I will let them know when we're gonna go.
We get our homes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 475 Trad Street. Frankie, if you'll give us an introduction and overview of the project, please.
75 Trad Street is in Charlestown, Council District 8. It is a Category 3, circa 1815 in the Old Historic District. They are requesting conceptual and preliminary approval to infill existing balcony at west elevation. This is the property's location on Trad Street. Existing site photo. Some context of Trad. Historic photos from the architecture inventory. And fire insurance map showing the history of the property. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
Good evening. I'm Joe Schmidt, Evanson Schmidt Architects. This is kind of an unusual one for us. We've not known to come to infill what might be piazzas. But this is we were approached by the client, and the more we looked into it, the odder we thought it was, and it's something that we thought was supportable. So this house was built in 1815 by a gentleman from Off. He was the minister for the church. And a couple of years later, there was a letter from a friend of his who came to visit and said, it's rather odd that you took a Charleston single house and turned it sideways, so it's a bit austere and doesn't fit Charleston. But other than that, it's a very gracious home that you've created. And that's exactly what has happened. He came to Charleston. He liked the Charleston single house concept, but he rotated it sideways, which caused all kind of problems. So the side piazza turned to be on the back. And that's where you got into trouble because there was no room for any other manifestations to happen over time to the property, which would typically happen with piazza infills or growth to the back of the property. Because on a Charleston single house style, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but the piazza would be down the side of the house from the street. It would turn around the back, but it would never go all the way through to the back corner of the next property. There would be some small room back there, which I've never quite understood. I've seen stairs in them, I've seen different things, but over time, they definitely got infill. Here, we don't know because of the date of this, when this addition was glommed onto the side of it, whether it was original or not. It's set back just a little bit as if it was a piazza. But if you look at the Sanborns, the very first half of it from the street is already infilled as early as we could find. And our thought was, it may never have been a piazza to the street because it's a very narrow, it's only 8 feet wide. The back is gracious, it's 12 or 13-foot deep piazza. So already, the Sanborn shows on the 3rd floor, this opening was there as a porch and it wrapped around the corner. At some point, what I'm trying to say is that first window you see on the second picture was likely always a solid piece of building, not a porch all the way to the street. That would fit the quirk of Charleston single houses and how they would wrap and have some room, often some room. So with that, we told her we would take a look at it, and on all floors, everything has been infilled over time as late as the last picture we had was, I think, in your packet, 1943 or something like that. And it's been all the things that a house needs for somebody to live in, which is bathrooms and the kitchen and closets and so forth, except this little piece. This little piece, the window, the original 1815 window is still pushed all the way back to the house in the room. And there's no way to get out to this, what I'm now calling a balcony, because I can't really call it a piazza, I can call it a porch, but it's basically left over as a balcony that really doesn't help the architectural feel of the front of this house, which I don't find austere. I think it's actually kind of refreshing and interesting with the street view. But before you can even get to it, because trad is one way, the first thing you get is this thing that looks like somebody cut a hole in the side of the house. I'm with her on this, and it takes me a lot to be going down this kind of path. But the only way to get out there is off of 2 bathrooms. And there also are a lot of leak problems with this because it's enclosed below it. For all those reasons, we are proposing to infill that section. There's a huge mistake apparently in your packet, which I didn't know until yesterday. We have been telling everybody that we've talked to, we want to keep the corner boards of this opening and only put the siding in between it. Okay, not have clean siding going from front to back. It apparently is on a layer on our computer that did not print those going from one to the other. And I seriously apologize, but that was always our case. We kind of wanted to leave the story told. We also wanted to do it for a very specific reason, because the siding boards on the front of the house and the back of the 3rd floor don't line up or match. So we would have had to strip one or the other, and we go, that makes no sense either. We like the idea that we're going to leave the corner boards, infill between it. I'd like to move that 1815 window out to the face of the of this in place, and we looking at it saying, and it's reversible and everything else. Now you can look and say, well, it's got the handrails. Well, the handrails aren't old either. They weren't there in 43. It was a screen porch. So this is just, we want to uncobble a kind of a mess. We think cleaning this up makes a lot of sense. It'll make the house present more elegantly. And that's my proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Do my fellow board members have any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. Do we have anyone speaking from the public?
Anna Catherine Alexander with the Preservation Society of Charleston. The Preservation Society appreciates the applicant reaching out on this proposal, as well as the research provided. While restorative efforts are always preferred to continuing the infill of historically open spaces, we do acknowledge that this is a unique scenario where documentation indicates that the infill of the original three-story piazzas had already begun by 1888. So if this remaining bay is to be enclosed, we ask that the existing corner boards remain intact to allow legibility of the evolution of the property and maximum reversibility. We appreciate the applicant referencing this and acknowledge that was a drawing error interview.
Amanda Nestor, Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has reviewed the proposed design to infill the existing porch. We understand from a usability perspective that it makes sense to enclose the remaining area of the porch. However, the current form preserves the evolutionary story of the house and should be preserved as is. We recommend denial of this request. Thank you.
Is there anyone else speaking? Frankie, if you give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
We just had the observation that while staff is typically opposed to infill due to previous alterations, the original form of this being a porch is no longer apparent, and we are recommending a conceptual approval with a final review by staff.
Thank you, Frankie. Mr. Schmidt, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment to the city staff comments? All right. Public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote. Thank you, by the way, very much for all the history. That was extremely helpful.
That was interesting. I think what Joe was saying makes perfect sense. It's not enough of a piazza left to really save. And I agree that filling it in will it'll actually make for a much nicer composition on that side of the building. So I'm perfectly fine with it.
This might be an easy one.
Yeah, I agree with Joe and Bill.
I actually have just a different approach. I'm not opposed to infilling it, but I would have liked to see the railing and that form, that little bit of what's left remain. And I actually, was disturbed that like the corner boards went away, but
Yeah, but
that's, if those are coming back. That's,
I can attest to things that where I've talked to different people. It's in our text where it says that they're remaining. So it blew me away. She wrote me and she said, where are the corner boards? I'm going, what do you mean, where are the corner boards? So
Yeah.
I truly apologize. That is truly a computer error.
I'll make a motion. I would like to make a motion for approval with the stipulation that the corner boards remain.
The conceptual approval
Yes.
with in front of you by staff.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with the board condition that the corner boards remain and final review by staff. Do I have a second to Bill's motion?
Yes.
Put the motion to a vote. Becky?
no, I'm opposed.
Bill?
Yay in favor.
Daryl?
Yes.
The chair votes with the majority and the motion passes 3-4 and 1 against. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, agenda item 5, 9 Lingard Street. Frank, who give us an introduction and overview of the project, please?
Ma'am. 9 Lindbergh Street is in Council District 8. It is new construction in the old historic district. They are requesting preliminary approval for a new 3-story mixed-use building. This is the property's location on Lindgard. Existing site photo. In the context of Lindgard. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
Everybody, Eddie Bello, Delegates, it's good to see the new board members on here. Exciting. All right, so I'm gonna go pretty quickly. For the new board members, that weren't here last time, we just recently received conceptual approval at the last meeting, so it was granted for the last apply for this middle, we're able to get those middle in. We had no comments from the board on the conceptual. It was just come back for preliminary. So I will go fast to kind of go through the details conceptually, and just for the benefit of the new folks, the existing site is an empty lot on Lingard, right next to the Latrell Hotel, which is top left, which was something our office designed. It's very narrow, the three Lingard is, so we've got a pretty tight site. There's the site from Cumberland, so you can see this from Cumberland and Lingard. Again, these are just left over from our conceptual submittal. I won't get into the context too much. Conceptually, part of this was about some of the details in Charleston. Also, part of the slide was talking about the color scheme. This will be an all-white building except for a couple of areas. So there on the top is our site, Lingard at the top, State to the east, and then Church. And our site's sort of packed in there. Further requirements, we have prior submittal and proposed current one. Nothing's really changed other than more development from last time. Ground floor is retail. The second and third floors are 2 apartment units each. Again, left is what we showed last time. The right is what we have now. Nothing significant has changed other than just development. Roof plan. Here's what we showed last time. We did not update the renderings because the building hasn't changed. It's all stucco. We've got this, and you'll see in my details, it's a double CMU wall. So you've got this 8-inch recess, and the window sits in the wall, and the window sits back from that. And so the idea was a very, very simple, a lot of glass. There's a really big windows. There's a Marvin windows, but very simple proportion, simple materials. Storefront on the ground floor, that's stained wood in the opening there. And then at the porch to the right, there's some steel that we want a little lighter there on the porch. Just some other views. Again, this is all conceptual, but just, more for the benefit of Becky and Daryl. Previous submittal and current, nothing's really changed other than some more detail. This is the west elevation. This is right next to Tommy Condon's, and so this won't be that visible. This wall doesn't have a deep recess. It has just a slighter recess because it's a secondary wall. And then this is the southern elevation, which is visible, Cumberland. Our client owns the 2 buildings and the site to the south, which are going to be renovated, which we're working on 28 and 32 Cumberland, which is the old Cumberland's bar, if anybody remembers that. And that courtyard this will front that courtyard. Again, all that's conceptual, but just to kind of help y'all understand the way things work. There's a view from that Cumberland. So again, materials, those 2 columns in the middle there, those are steel. And then we have a steel porch beam that goes across, all white. We've got stained wood ceilings, GFRC cornice, that's a big cornice that will be white as well. And then storefront doors on the ground floor. Just another view. Again, these are just left over from last time. Nothing's really changed. So just the enlarged plans, I'll go through these quickly. I don't think I'll need to worry about these. Enlarged elevations, I'll go quick because I'm talking too much. So just, again, this is a sort of a sketchy rendering showing how it works. You can see the steel there. Here's a section enlarged elevation. I think it's pretty straightforward. Deep recess. I think our goal was for it to be very simple, but still striking. So I think with the forms, there's a lot of time spent figuring out how to get those portions right, where the vertical and horizontal dimensions are the same. This is the western view, again, slightly less of a pronounced reveal. Porch details. These don't read very well on screen, but I think what's submitted is clear. It's just showing how the system works. It's a stow system, which is actually a Portland cement plaster stucco. It's a 3-coat system, but it comes integral with the rigid insulation. which is continuous, which you have to have by code. This is the same structure system that the VAR Lodge approved on the Cooper Hotel, which is the giant hotel next to Waterfront Park there. Our design's nowhere like that, but if you go by that, it's a very traditional, smooth finish, looks great. That's the goal here. Very simple, looks like, I mean, it's real stucco, it's Portland cement. Just more details. If you have questions, I'll just go through these quickly. Aluminum rail. Moving details you don't need to see. Ground floor, again, we've got a little bit of wood. One thing that has changed in these renderings, those windows there will not, the storefront, only of the wood will not be white. Those will be blocks. That was a later decision that we came up with in the last couple of weeks. Window details, you can see the wood detail there in the center. It's kind of a staggered vertical wood. Just more plan details. Build up a block, really. It's just an exercise in seeing view. We're required to show streetscape, even though that's a conceptual issue. And then that's the last rendering. I think that's it. Yep. That's my presentation. So it's really just filling in details.
Any questions for the applicant?
What type of wood was it on the curved portion?
Although we called it out, it probably will be cedar, stained. We've used in the past. We used that over Greek Center and over on 174 Meeting. It looks pretty rich. That's what the ceiling, yes, we'll use that and we'll use that for the ceilings. Which has a, you know, that looks like it's pretty rich color.
You got into control joints and stuff like that.
No, we have the person looking at this, we're not gonna have to have a lot of control joints. If you look at the expanse of the wall, especially that side right there, you've got this much. So I think we're gonna be okay. The system, the way the system works, because it's all integrated, you don't have to have as many control. So you might have to have some on that west, but that's less visible, so I think it'll be okay.
And I think you said last time the courtyard will come back to. So
Yeah, the courtyard is really technically not even part of this site.
Yeah.
So we've got to design it and figure out what that is. It might just be a staff.
Okay.
But yeah, that we, you know, we drew something we think would look
Yeah.
good, but I don't know what the client wants, so.
Any other questions? Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking? All right, Frankie, if you give the city staff comments and recommendations, please.
Since it was a conceptual approval, before just stated previously, they wanted to see more detail before turning it over to staff. We don't have any additional comments. So we're recommending preliminary approval with a final review by staff.
Thank you, Frankie. Eddie, did you want to respond to anything?
We agree with staff.
Okay. All right, public
Can I
comment.
get that in writing?
Public comment and the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote. I do recall the board being happy with it last time. I
Yeah,
wanted to
that's-
see it back just because it is a large new building.
It was well received at the time. Yeah, it's a great building. I think, like I said last time, I really like the kind of pull and push of the planes. The deep 8-inch recesses are great. And what you'll probably have another 4 inches for the windows too or something. So there's gonna be a lot of depth there. I think that's gonna be great. I love the simplicity of the building. Repeat of the wood on the piazza ceilings and the entryways. I love the staggered in and out of the vertical wood pieces at the entryway. I think that's really nice detail. I like the way that the all steel structure of the piazzas just sort of sits inside the concrete mass. I just think it's a great design.
Any comments?
I agree with Bill. I think it's gorgeous.
Thank you. Excited about it.
Looks like we have some consensus. Did you want to make a motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion for preliminary approval with final review by staff.
All right. We have a motion on the floor for preliminary approval with final review by staff. Do you have a second?
Yes.
Becky? Put the motion to a vote. Daryl?
Yes.
Bill?
Yeah, in favor.
Becky?
Yes.
Chair votes to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Good to get both from you. Thank you. Have a good night.
Agenda item 640 Montague Street. Frankie, if you'll give us an introduction, overview of the project, please.
40 Montague Street is in Charleston Village, Council District 8. It is a Category 2, circa 1891 in the Golden Historic District. They're requesting approval to demolish an existing accessory structure, circa 2000, and to construct a new zoning compliant pool house in its place. This is the property's location on Montague. Some existing site photos. Context of Montague. And photos from the architecture inventory. And sandboard map showing the history of the property. And before I turn it over to the applicant, the only thing I'll add for you guys is this one, we did not ask for the site visit because it was a relatively new structure and you can't see it.
Evening, board members. I'm Erin Lanier with Julia Martin Architects here tonight on behalf of the owners of 40 Montague to request conceptual approval for this new accessory structure at the rear of their property. As you can see in these photos, the main house at 40 Montague, known as the Bernard Bowler's house, is an interesting sort of Queen Anne East Lake residence constructed in the 1890s. And at the north of the property, there's an existing non-historic collection of sheds and a pergola that we're requesting to remove and replace with the new pool house in the same location. Here are some additional photos of the existing conditions back there, along with a series of sandboard maps, which show that there was historically a two-story accessory structure at the rear of this lot. This is the existing and proposed site plan. The new pool house will be one story and then anchored by that new linear pool, and this complies with all zoning requirements. The floor plan is sort of a variation on the dog trot house with a central open air sitting area flanked by enclosed living space. We are in a flood zone, so we have incorporated a series of raised planters and terrace steps to reach the finished floor level in a way that lessens the impact of the additional height on the overall proportions of the facade. These precedent images speak to the form and materials being proposed, including the use of pierced brick, traditional louvered shutters, and a gabled parapet wall. And you can see that translated here in the proposed elevations. Our goal with this design is to create a space that's functional yet allows for direct connection to the garden via the open air element and the large scale windows. The materials and forms are traditional in nature, but subdued so as not to compete with the elaborate detail and ornamentation of the historic house. And then I'll end here with our renderings, and I apologize, this is a double label here. The image there on the right is just the view from inside the property, and the view from the left is shown sort of for clarity. There's actually a gate that exists sort of towards the rear of the house. Show you these photos, if that's helpful. That is looking down the driveway. You can see there's a fence there, and this is from Smith Street, and it's way back there. So I think in reality, you'll mostly see the roof from Montague Street. That is all I have. If I can answer any questions. Yeah.
I had two. So it's not visible from this
I mean,
street?
you'll certainly see parts of it, but I'm just saying, I think with the fence located where it is, from any vantage point, you're mainly gonna see just that small section of.
And you're in a flood zone, but you're not in a Lima Coastal A flood zone, that's.
And is the eve height still at 11? I mean, is it still zoning?
It's all zoning, yeah, component. And actually, with the changes recently, I believe that when you're in a flood zone, you have a little bit more leeway on the height of accessory structures based off of the height of the front building. That makes sense.
The brick, is it just gonna be painted brick or is it gonna have like a smear? Or
I
something?
think we're looking at either painted or maybe a lime wash. Possibly a stucco over the brick. We're still kind of deciding what we're gonna do there, but we do want to have these pierced brick elements. Sort of there at the front, and as you can sort of see, like as through the center part, we'd like to have pierced brick on either side of that fireplace that you're seeing.
And then you call out either fiberglass or aluminum clad windows. Then are fiberglass acceptable?
For new construction, yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you. Is there anyone speaking from the public? Okay. Frankie, if you give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
Okay, staff just had a couple observations that one is that it's a category 2 in the architecture inventory. So alterations have to be approved by the board. And that the proposed alteration is only minimally visible from Montague Street. So staff is recommending a conceptual approval with a final review by staff of permit document.
Thank you, Frankie. Aaron, did you want to respond to anything? All right, public comment. The applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
At first, I kind of wondered, should you be playing on the house or not? But I agree with you that house is so ornate and so special. It probably is better for this just to sort of be simple and just kind of quietly sit at the rear. So I think the direction is just spot on there, in my opinion. I don't really have any comments. I think it's very nice of them.
My only thought is it does sort of play on the front house, only on the just the that roof shape, but
Roof shape.
a little nod to the front of the house. I don't know if that was intentional.
I have no comments.
Yeah, and I don't either, except, that I guess for clarity in the future, just to know the elevations or the heights of this thing would be helpful. And helpful as it moves to staff that they can know that they're confirming what's being approved.
Got some consensus.
Yes, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion for conceptual approval with final written plan.
We have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with final review by staff. Do I have a second?
Yes.
You, Becky. Put the motion to a vote. Daryl,
Yes.
Bill,
Yay in favor.
Becky.
Yes.
Chair vote to the majority and the motion passed unanimously. Okay, Aaron, that's again. Agenda item 7, 95 East Bay Street. Frankie, if you'll give us an introduction, overview of the project, please.
95 East Bay Street is in Charleston, Council District 8. It is also a category 2, circa 1741 in the Old Historic District. Requesting conceptual approval of new 1-story rear addition, new garden shed, which is not visible. Also, the rear addition and garden shed are not visible from the right of way, and modifications to windows at the front facade. I got that one. This is the property's location on East Bay. Existing site photos. Some context of East Bay. And photos from the architecture inventory. And then all the Sanborn maps showing the history of the property. And then I will turn it over to the applicant again.
Erin Lanier, again, with Julie Martin Architects. Our second project this evening is at 95 East Bay Street, and the owners are here with me tonight. We are requesting approval for a new 1-story addition, a garden shed, and some alterations to the first floor windows at the street facade. Historic Charleston Foundation has an easement on this property, and they have granted conceptual approval for everything that we're presenting to. 95 is the building there in green in the middle of Rainbow Road, and it was constructed along with its neighbors to the north around the middle of the 18th century. Our scope of work is primarily limited to the rear of the building, as seen at the bottom photo. but we're also requesting to modify those two windows at the front. The Sanborn maps indicate that the property originally stretched to Beaton's Alley and included a series of substantial additions at the rear of the historic mass, as well as a separate dependency structure to the west. In 1938, the building was in significant decline and purchased by Susan Pringle Frost, who subsequently sold it to John McGowan of California. McGowan's carried out an extensive renovation of the home, which included removal of the rear additions and changes to the ground floor facade, as well as a later subdivision of the property. These are a series of historic photographs which show the evolution of the building throughout the first half of the 20th century. The upper left-hand photo shows the building just prior to the 1938 renovation. And at that time, you can see there was a pretty cool storefront at the ground floor. Below that is a view from Elliott or Beaton's Alley, where you can see the former 1- and 2-story additions that were at the rear. And then to the right is the rear facade following the removal of those additions. As part of the 1938 renovation, the front facade was altered to its current configuration of 2 windows flanked by the main entrance and a secondary entrance that is no longer in use. So here's our existing and proposed site plan, which highlights our request to remove the bay at the rear and make way for a new 1-story rear addition connected via hyphen at the existing opening. Additionally, the owners would like to add a small garden shed adjacent to the sidewall at the south. These are some precedent images that sort of inform the design for the new addition, as well as the garden shed. And then in the upper right, we've included a historic image of the neighbors to the north, illustrating the inspiration for the window alterations at the front facade. Of course, as you saw, historically, there was a storefront at 95 East Bay, but when that was replaced with the current windows and doors, those windows were awkwardly high to accommodate the countertop that's on the inside currently. So we're proposing to replace those with new windows in the same opening, but lowering the sill to match the tall windows shown there at 97, 99 East Bay. Here's our existing and proposed first floor plan. This project was spurred by the owner's desire to rethink the main floor and expand the rear to allow for a proper kitchen, dining room, and sitting area all on the same level. We wanted to maintain as much of the original layout as possible, including circulation, but create a better flow and bring in more natural light. So this new addition connects via a small hyphen at the existing bay window, and then steps in from the main mast to maintain access to the rear yard and preserve the historic masonry side walls on either side. This is the existing and proposed street facade showing the changes to the first floor windows as I previously described. And then here is the existing and proposed rear elevation at the hyphen, as well as the addition beyond. The addition is elegantly detailed and maximizes the opportunity for natural light. It will have a bell cast copper roof and nickel gap siding with fiberglass clad fenestration. And I'll just note that, as Pinky said, the visibility of this structure would be really minimal because the only view corridor is from Elliott Street, 5 properties away. And because of multiple tall side walls, you'll really only have a partial view of the copper roof. These are some renderings from the interior of the block. And then again, details on the garden shed, which I do not believe would be visible. That's all I have. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
So are the first floor windows the 1941 windows?
The windows, I think, have been replaced since then, but the openings were created, yes, in 1938 when that renovation was done. The kitchen is currently in the front, and so those windows are popped up high and proportionally just seems wrong to have such short windows at the ground floor.
So were the original openings extended like you all are planning to?
Well, originally, at least
It was a
prior,
storefront.
was the storefront.
That's right.
So we're
Yeah.
using the precedents of the neighboring buildings that were built at the same time as this house.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
Amanda Nestor, Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has an exterior preservation easement on the property. HCF staff has worked closely with the applicant over the last few months, and we confirm that this proposal conforms to the requirements of the easement. The proposed modifications will not impact historic materials at 95 East Bay Street. At the front elevation, the historic ground floor treatment was storefront. The existing placement and dimensions of first floor windows is not historic and are therefore not important to retain as is. The proposed windows are more proportionate to the rest of the building. At the rear, the applicant is removing a non-historic bay window for the one-story hyphenated addition. The masonry opening will not be enlarged. The proposed addition is clearly differentiated from the historic structure. The addition is subordinate to the historic structure, and the alteration is completely reversible. Both modifications meet the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, and we respectfully recommend approval of this application. Thank you.
Is there anyone else speaking? All right, Frankie, if you give the city staff comments and recommendations, please.
Okay, we just have a couple observations, similar to the last one. This is also a category 2. So any alterations have to be approved by board. The rear portions of the project, I will trust Erin that she has a very, very narrow visibility somewhere, but we could not find visibility from a public right away. The proposal matches the facades of 97 and 99 East Bay. And the facade was previously altered for the storefront, from the storefront. Staff recommendation is a conceptual approval with final review by staff of permit and document. And I'll just make a note for the applicant that if you guys go forward with the planters, you need encroachment. Just don't forget.
Thank you, Frankie. Aaron, did you want to respond to or clarify anything? All right, public comment. The applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
The window proportions are so much better than what's there now. So I appreciate that. The shed, I agree, you're not gonna see it. The kitchen addition, you know, I love it. It's kind of a little jewel box in a way. Love the bell cast roof, the zipper gap siding, the whole eyebrow dormer. It's all really sweet.
I agree with Bill. I think the replacement of the windows on the front gave me pause, but I have a lot of respect for HCF and know that they have looked closely at it. So I have to say, if they're comfortable with it, that means a lot. And then it does look better. It just, I know that on those buildings, a lot of time, the second floor was actually the piano nobile, was the entertaining floor. So,
I have no comments. I think it's beautiful,
Yeah.
the front facade and the addition.
Anyone want to make a motion? Becky, did you want to make a
Okay,
motion for conceptual
Yes, I'll make
approval
a motion for conceptual approval,
with final review by staff, or do you want to see?
final review by staff.
All right, thank you, Becky. We have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with final review by staff. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Bill, put the motion to a vote. Daryl,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Bill.
Yeah, in favor.
Chair votes with majority and the motion passes unanimously. One more. And the 8th and final item, 40 Broad Street. Frankie, if you'll give us an introduction, overview of the project, please.
40 Broad Street is also in Charleston, also Council District 8, and also Category 2. It is circa 1852 in the Old Historic District, requesting conceptual approval of a new roof monitor at rear courtyard. This is this property location on Broad Street. Some existing site photos. Context of Broad Street. Architecture inventory photos. And Sanborn map showing the history of the structure. I will turn it over to the applicant.
Erin Lanier with Julia Martin Architects. Last project this evening of 40 Broad Street, specifically the rear of the first floor and what used to be Brown Dog Deli. We are working with Mike Schuler on a new restaurant concept for this space. And as part of that process, we'd like to clean up and enclose the existing rear courtyards that can be used for dining year round. For reference, this is just the west of the Vine Tiger, which also has a large courtyard at the rear. And the space is currently occupied by a one-story kitchen extension, an outdoor cooler, and a small covered patio. This is all interior to historic brick walls that are sort of a hodgepodge of remnants from previous structures on the lot. And then the photos there on the left give you a sense of visibility from the public right-of-way, which is about 250 feet away from Chalmers Street and then 85 feet away from that little view down from Church. So here are Sanborn maps and some historic images which indicate that the area in question was previously occupied by a three-story tenement and several one-story structures. And I think it's particularly fun to see this photograph from 1898 on the left, showing that same view down the corridor. So here's our existing and proposed floor plan. What we're trying to do here is consolidate the kitchen and back of house and new ADA compliant restrooms and a one-story addition that's directly behind the main three-story mass so that we can open up the courtyard space and really showcase the historic masonry walls there. The only element of this plan that would be partially visible is the new roof monitor that we'd like to install over the courtyard. Given that there's no windows existing nor anything to be added, the monitor would allow for natural light and use of the space regardless of the weather. Most importantly, the new monitor and roof structure would be structurally isolated from the historic walls and supported at the interior via steel framing. So here is existing and proposed roof plan. And again, this is mostly occurring behind the existing site walls. So only the roof monitor would be projecting above. Moving on, this is the existing and proposed north elevation. And then the west elevation. The brick walls that are there now are not in the best shape, so we will do some repair work as needed on those. And then we're asking to add a door to provide a second means of egress. These renderings show the view from Church Street, existing and proposed. And then down below is just an interior view to better convey what we're hoping to achieve with this addition to the corridor. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant?
Your windows, talk about those a little bit, what they may or may not be.
So, excuse me, we are currently just imagining that they'd be like a fixed, aluminum clad or fiberglass window, and skylights up at the ridge. What we're doing here tonight is sort of showing what we think is the maximum impact this might have from the street. We're still working through the structural and the HVAC to serve this little element. So it's possible that that will get pulled down a little bit.
I have a question. Is the HVAC running through here? Is that what that's?
So we are still sorting that out. It may run through there. It may end up having to run as exposed ducts through the space.
Yes, it should be focused on the outside.
Right. That's one of the hardest parts that we're still trying to figure out.
And I know most of the monitors going to be windows. And what about the cladding for any?
We're imagining just like maybe a nickel gap whorl on the ends where we would have it be solid.
And just a standing seam.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Can I see the exterior one more time?
This is
Yeah, that's the one.
Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking?
Amanda Nestor, Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has reviewed the proposed conceptual design of the roof monitor at 40 Broad. We believe the design will be an improvement for the building. However, we encourage a restudy of the height of the proposed roof monitor, as we believe it is too tall and should be reduced.
Frankie, would you give us a staff? Oh, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Mike Hicks, I'm actually a carriage store guide here in Charleston, and I agree, I like the idea of the monitor, but I also agree with the Historic Foundation that it's a bit too tall. It's gonna stick out a bit too much in that space. But otherwise, turning that back area into that, well, I really like how it's gonna use the brick walls as well. And also that second egress probably for the best, if you're gonna have an eating area out back there, but a little bit too tall, in my opinion, but thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else speaking? All right, Frankie, if you give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
Okay, we just again had the observation that it is a category 2. So alterations have to be approved by the board and that it is only minimally visible from Church Street. Therefore, we are recommending conceptual approval with a final review.
Thank you, Frankie. And did you want to respond to or clarify anything in the public comment to the city staff comments?
The only thing I guess I would sort of clarify is, again, we are still sort of studying how the HVAC is going to work. So we're hedging our bets with how much height we need under those windows. In our opinion, this is an area that in fact had a 3-story building back there in the past. So we think it's still perfectly reasonable in terms of overall height of this structure compared to its surroundings. And I guess I would just say, we're trying to get natural light into the space that otherwise has no windows. So trying to maximize the amount of.
Unfortunately, now we're outside of the public comment
Oh,
period.
that's right.
Yeah. All right, public comment in the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
I mean, I think it's nicely done. I'm not so sure that I think it's too tall, and for the reason behind that is because of the buildings that are surrounding it.
Yes.
I think this little kind of short, stubby little remnant of a building that you're going on top of could actually use a little more height.
I agree with Bill, and I think I like the leaving of the existing, and then the monitor is just gonna be, it's new. And you have the opportunity to let in more light. So I don't have a problem with the height of it.
Especially that area back there. I don't think I knew they had a back area, and I used to go there all the time when it was open. And the few times I went back there, it's very dark. It's actually kind of gross. I think getting back there. But it's a dark area. So I think that's also why I'm okay with the height, to just get some light into that dining area. That's how it'll be utilized.
One thing that I would like to say is, I like the idea of it being kind of monochromatic. Your roof, windows, trim, yeah.
Anything else?
And from my perspective, it does look a little high to me, and it looks a little residential in scale. My first impression. You're right, see that.
The vocabulary.
She's looking at an image on sheet.
203.
See the top left there, the roof monitor, that, this is a little more commercial to me. What's that?
I don't think it's gonna be very visible.
Or that, yeah. If it's not visible, then it's less important.
It's another. I don't think it will be very visible. I think it's showing up as more visible in this than it actually will be.
Just that view back behind the bank.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have some consensus on a motion.
I'll move for conceptual approval.
The final review by staff, or do you want to
Final
see it
review
back?
by staff.
We have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with final review by staff. Do I have a second?
Second?
Bill, with the motion to a vote. Daryl?
No.
All right. Becky?
Yes.
Bill?
Yeah, in favor.
The chair votes to the majority and the motion passes 3-4 and 1 against. Thank you, Aaron. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Becky, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, hearing none opposed. We are adjourned.